Smart Girls Politics Press Conference on Education. We are here for two purposes: to focus on and highlight National School Choice Week and to encourage our state legislature on two groundbreaking education bills. However, I'd like to first of all tell you about Smart Girl Politics. We are one of the fastest growing premier social networks for conservative women in the country. Smart Girl Politics fights for the key principles of limited government, lower taxes, fiscal and personal responsibility. With a strong belief in self-governance, Smart Girl Politics enables conservative women to learn, to grow, and to mentor one another, primarily through the use of social media. Using the information and tools learned, it is our hope to develop activists, candidates, and leaders for the future. With over 45,000 members, the mission of Smart Girl Politics Action is to engage, educate, and empower. Our team in New Hampshire consists of Kate Baker, Erin Lamontagne, Susan Olson, and myself. This morning we want to focus on the effective education options for children by kicking off the second annual National School Choice Week here in New Hampshire from January 22nd to January 28th. The documentaries Waiting for Superman, The Lottery, and The Cartel spotlight the crisis that we are facing in our American education system. We believe that parents should be empowered and encouraged to choose the best educational environment for their children. Whether it is public schools, magnet schools, private schools, charter schools, or homeschooling, or other methods, we want our parents to be able to advocate for the future of their own child. This week raises the awareness that we can offer effective educational options to our children. In New Hampshire, we are truly blessed to have legislators who are sensitive to the needs of our children and to have that they should have choice in education opportunities. The House Majority Leader, D.J. Betancourt, is the prime sponsor of HB 1607 that will establish a tax credit for businesses who contribute to a scholarship organization like the Network for Educational Opportunity. In turn, the scholarship organization will select recipients who will be able to make a choice for education that he or she might not otherwise have. The House Ways and Means Committee will be holding a public hearing on HB 1607 in room 202 of this building this afternoon beginning at 1 o'clock. SB 372 is a similar bill in the Senate Education Committee sponsored by Senator Jim Forsyth. That will have a public hearing tomorrow, Tuesday, beginning at 1 p.m. in room 103 of the LOB. And now I'd like to introduce the Education Policy Research Chair for the National Smart Girl Politics Organization and also our New Hampshire Smart Girl Politics Education Chair, Kate Baker.
Thank you. So I just wanted to take this time to congratulate our legislators on behalf of New Hampshire parents. The education tax credit for business donation to scholarship organizations is seen as the absolute best practice in school choice nationwide. While it benefits our state and local communities in a fiscal sense, it empowers families to find or create optimal education for their children. It's a well-known fact that our current school curriculum is not a perfect fit for every child. Every child has different needs, some that we could not really even begin to quantify. On the other hand, parents know their children, understand them, and are in the best possible position to make decisions and choices about their children's education and their future. Parents make choices every day, from laundry detergent to the food we buy, to the purchase of a car or a home, even our children's preschool and college. We want these choices in our children's K-12 education as well, and having a business-funded scholarship program that we can apply to for help is a step in the right direction. Currently, the only parents who can choose are the parents that can pay. And I say school choice is about freedom. Every family, poor, wealthy, and those in between, should have the freedom to choose a school that's right for their children. And it's time that we have that freedom in New Hampshire. So thank you so much for your efforts. I'm going to introduce you to DJ. DJ is our House Majority Leader and a wonderful spokesperson, in my opinion, for young Republicans, being both a leader and a listener. So here's DJ.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and good morning. It's great to have so many respected voices here in New Hampshire standing up for educational choice in two important pieces of legislation. In the last decade, 8 states have launched education tax credit programs to expand educational opportunities for hundreds of thousands of students across America, but particularly those from low and middle income families. These programs provide tax credits to businesses that donate to state-approved, not-for-profit scholarship organizations. House Bill 1607 seeks to allow the granting of scholarships to families seeking alternatives to their geographically assigned public schools, including independent schools, homeschooling, and out-of-district public schools. New Hampshire House Republican leadership is committed to advancing policies that achieve education excellence. For these reasons, we sponsored and will work hard to pass House Bill 1607. I want to stress that this legislation is an education tax credit program that seeks to provide choices to parents while having the potential to save taxpayers, all while improving the quality of education in New Hampshire. Good schools should not only be available to the rich. All children should have the opportunity to choose what school to go to. I am not interested in an adequate education for our children here in New Hampshire. Rather, we are interested in an excellent education for our children, one that allows our kids to be competitive with the best and brightest minds in the world. While at times the political parties and their supporters may disagree on some issues, I know that we all come together to support Pell Grants, which provide assistance for middle to low income students who are looking to attend college. This program is designed along those lines, and if you support Pell Grants, then this is legislation that you should take a very, very careful look at, because we seek to accomplish the same goal. We should not provide assistance only for higher education, but for all levels of education. We believe in equality of opportunity for students, and this legislation will provide the same benefits as those college-bound students, who with Pell Grants can pick the college of their choice. With passage of House Bill 1607, we will bring educational choices to every family in our state. Personally, I have been public school educated my entire life, with the exception of the 1 year that Franklin Pierce Law Center was a private institution. I believe in public education, and it is for that reason that I support this legislation, because our public school students can also benefit. A recent study from Florida's own Department of Education demonstrated that the performance of students in public schools improved in response to an education tax credit program. At the end of the day, Granite Staters appreciate that we have an excellent public school system, but they also appreciate that no school is right for every single child. Some children learn best in the traditional public school environment. Others need a more hands-on learning approach, more special attention, or other things that our public schools simply can't provide. The idea of this legislation is to tailor education to each child, rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. No school, no matter how great, works perfectly for everyone. We are committed to expanding choices so that every student can receive an excellent education here in New Hampshire, and I look forward to working in a bipartisan manner to achieve education excellence here in New Hampshire. Thank you very much.
I'd like to welcome Jim Forsyth to the podium, the sponsor of the legislation in the Senate. Jim is both a collaborative and consistent leader, consistently for smaller government. So thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Steve. And before I give my formal remarks, I would like to thank Senator Tom DuBois, who's here. He sponsored SB 67, which was a study committee to look at school choice, and that's what got this issue started. Also, thanks to the Majority Leader for stepping up to the plate to sponsor and push forward this legislation, and Representative Hill, who's been here since the SB 67 bill, really working hard on the technical issues on the bill. Alan Schaefer also gave testimony that helped kind of launch this along with the path of tax credits. Adam Schaefer of Cato Institute from the national level will be here later today to testify. He's been a big help. Charlie Arlinghouse has been a huge help, as well as Jason Bedrick, who's working for him in grad studies. Former state rep, has been a big help. Also thanks to Ovid LaMontagne, who's here with us today, and then Kevin Smith, who both personally expressed support for tax credits, candidates for governors. Freedom to choose is what has caused a constant increase in quality and a decrease in cost for goods and services throughout our country's history. Conversely, it is well understood that monopolies lead to a decrease in quality and or higher prices. School choice is a movement designed to unleash choice in education by enabling parents the ability to choose the school that meets their needs best. One size does not fit all, and the school choice movement recognizes that each child is a unique individual. There are various forms of school choice programs: public school choice, public charter schools, vouchers, and tax credits. Over the next 2 days, as has been mentioned, the two companion bills, SB 327 and House Bill 1607, will be introduced. These bills provide a tax credit against the business profits tax and or business enterprise tax for any business that donates to a scholarship organization. The scholarship organizations can then fund scholarships with an average size of $2,500 for a child to go to a private school or an out-of-district public school. Additionally, scholarships can be given to homeschooling families to reimburse for the cost of courses or materials. The program has been designed based on the best practices of several other states that have enacted tax credit legislation. The initial size of the program is capped to be $15 million in donations. The program is designed to be revenue neutral to the state or as late savings. This is achieved by requiring that a percentage of the scholarships be given to children currently in public schools, saving the state an average of $4,100 per child in reduced adequacy aid payments, since they would have chosen to leave their local public schools. While towns would see slightly lower adequacy payment in this case, they also have cost savings since they will have less children to educate in that case. Numerous studies have shown that the effectiveness for these kids, these kinds of choice programs, to improve the quality of education, not only for the child who receives the scholarship, but also for the children who remain in their local public schools, since that school now has to compete for funding. Depending on how the programs are structured, other states have also seen cost savings, since the cost of the scholarship, which is an average of $2,500 in this case, is much lower than the average public school per pupil cost, which is over $14,000 in New Hampshire. So in conclusion, this is going to be a great program for parents and children here in New Hampshire in terms of effectiveness and in terms of cost. Thank you.
I'd like to take the time, as Jim mentioned, Alan Schaefer from the Network of Education Opportunity gave countless hours to writing this legislation. I'd like to welcome him to speak.
My name is Alan Schaefer, and I'm with the Network for Educational Opportunity. I am privileged to have been able to participate with such caring, dedicated leaders as you've heard from today, and I am humbled at the opportunity this represents. I'd like to mention that all of the facts of how we're going to save money and all of the comparisons of educational results are fine, but the whole purpose of the legislation is the children, to give them opportunities, and that's what we're trying to do. The children are the key, but the parents are the responsible ones, and they're the ones who need new freedom to choose. Many parents don't have that freedom now, only a few do, and we can open that up so any parent can choose. Not all will, but any should be able to choose. But there's another group of people that I represent that I would like to mention today, and that is businesses. I'm a new business in New Hampshire, and I want to become a scholarship organization to serve the children according to the mission and vision that we have developed of opening new opportunities for children. This opportunity to fund this through business donations and private dollars to become scholarships for children is an unprecedented opportunity for the state of New Hampshire. This does not subtract dollars from anyone. It does help our budget in a modest way, but its purpose is to actually infuse investment of dollars and personal investment into the education process, because $2,500 will not buy everyone a full scholarship. It will be something that people have to invest themselves in. And you're going to see a mushrooming, not only as has been mentioned, in the results in local public schools who are in a position to be competing with the tax credit program, but you're also going to see investment from individual people in the state of New Hampshire. So this is truly a win-win opportunity, and I look forward to being a partner in this new process here in New Hampshire. I'd also like to just mention that New Hampshire has always been a pioneer and a champion of freedom and of individual freedom and responsibility. And this legislation restores and promotes that in such a way that even the nationwide organizations who represent this type of initiative have recognized this legislation as a model, as something other states can look to as to how to do this. These representatives have done an excellent job, and I congratulate them, and I'm privileged to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, DJ, and Jim. In addition, today, we also have with us a top New Hampshire public policy analyst and a gubernatorial candidate, as well as a member of Cornerstone Policy Research, their education person. So at this point, Charlie Arlinghouse is the president of the Josiah Bartlett Center for Public Policy, a nonprofit, nonpartisan, independent free market think tank located here in New Hampshire. Charlie has a regular column in the Union Leader and is a frequent interview on regional and national radio and television. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Charlie to speak.
And I'm not the candidate for governor. Although we can talk about that. And I'm also neither smart nor a girl, so you'll have to indulge me. But there's nothing that hasn't been said, so I won't bore you too long. But we're releasing a paper today, which is about scholarship tax credit programs around the country. This is a program that is not unique to New Hampshire. It's not something where we're reinventing a wheel. It's a wheel that already exists and is rolling elsewhere. And one of the things that we looked at, and Jason Pedrick did the research on this for us, a research fellow with us, one of the things that he looked at is what happens around the country, and you can see how they operate. It's a fairly comprehensive paper that's big enough to hit, I was going to say slap your dog with when he's mad, but that's not but it's thick enough to stun an ox, as they say. But anyway, one of the things we want to do is provide research to people and talk about how these programs work. And I'll leave you with this thought, that for a portion of New Hampshire, they already have school choice. Rich people have school choice, poor people don't, and it has a significant impact on their outcomes. For a lot of people, my son, for example, the public school is an excellent option, is a decent option, is the right option for them, and that's a choice that we make. For some people, no matter how good your public school is, it's not necessarily the right option, or there might be a better option. And any program, whether it be a charter school program, whether it be an educational choice program of some sort, is designed to do that, to take people who would benefit from having other options and give them other options. And that's all that anyone is looking to do here. So with that, I'm going to shut up.
Thank you, Charlie. Ovid LaMontagne is a Republican candidate for governor, and he began his career as a teacher. He also served as the chairman of the state school board and chairman of the diocesan school board before he was the 2000 Republican nominee for governor. So at this point, we'd like to have Ovid come up and speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be with you this morning, and I'm here not so much as a candidate for governor, but as an educational leader, both in the non-public sector as well as in the public sector, and to stand in solidarity with those New Hampshire individuals, in addition to my niece Erin, who is with a great organization here, trying to bring focus on an issue that's been really in the wilderness for the last 16 years. The last major initiative we undertook in New Hampshire to try to create choice in education was when we passed charter school legislation in 1995. I was proud to be part of the team, working with Senator Rubens at that time as chairman of the State Board of Education and Governor Merrill, to bring in a new opportunity for choice, an alternative. And I think school choice is the future. And it's about time we get back to business of looking at opportunities, ways that poor and middle-income families, as well as the wealthy, can access alternative to education. School choice includes homeschooling, which I vigorously defend, Catholic schools, non-religious schools, Montessori schools, and all sorts of hybrid in between. And we need to be a state that welcomes different approaches to education. I'm sure that Senator Forsyth and Majority Leader Betancourt would agree that this legislation is very important, but it's a baby step, a very important baby step in the right direction, creating more opportunity for school choice. And I'm here to stand with them as a former teacher, taught social studies and physics, as a former chairman of the New Hampshire Diocesan School Board, which oversees the Catholic schools for 5 years, and chairman of the State Board of Education. Education is a very important resource, opportunity for our young people to become functioning members of our society, to be wage earners for our employers, and to be citizens who can participate in our great democracy and our republic form of government. So I commend the leadership that has taken on the cause for these two bills. You know, it's fashionable for candidates to talk about school choice. It's rare that you have actually elected officials who take up the mantle and try to move it forward. And I'm terribly grateful as a New Hampshire citizen that we have such fine leaders in our legislature willing to take the next step in advancing school choice opportunities for our families. Thank you.
And who do you represent? Sorry.
Thank you. And last but not least is Cornerstone Actions Education. What are you? Director? Liaison. She's the liaison. So I'd like to introduce Anne-Marie Banfield, who has been very active in all levels of education awareness, whether it's at the local level or the state level or the federal level. So, Anne-Marie.
Thank you. I'm with Cornerstone Action. We represent roughly 6,000 New Hampshire residents. We are in full support of this bill. I network with school board members, teachers, and parents from all across New Hampshire. One of the frustrations that they consistently talk about is the government mandates and rules on public schools. This has given little choice to parents. It has reduced their voice immensely. When they go into schools and they have an issue, the schools are now accountable to federal and state governments. Parents are becoming extremely frustrated, as are school board members and teachers. We believe this legislation gives back that power and control to parents. We fully support anything that empowers parents because we believe that this will enhance the public school system. When parents have a voice and they are happy in their public school system, that will enhance the public school system. So this is not about dismantling public education. This is, to me, about enhancing it, making it better, and if it doesn't fit for all students, it doesn't fit. But our goal is to improve public education if we can, and we believe this legislation will do just that.
Thank you, all of you, for coming out to speak this morning. As a mother of 4 children, I can tell you that no child, even in the same family, benefits the same from each educational system. Each child is different, and some benefit from having a very structured system, others having a more open system. So this is one of the main reasons why we're so excited about the legislation that's coming forward that will enable our parents to have more choice in education, whether they're poor, whether they're middle class, or whether they're the upper class. At this time, before I open up to questions, I'd like to make a presentation to each of our male members. Smart Girl Politics is for women and the men who support them. So I would like to introduce each one of them and give you a small token of our appreciation and initiation into the group. Senator Forsyth. You're welcome. Ovid? Sure. You're welcome. Thank you. Alan, and thank you so much for writing this legislation. You're welcome. Wear this proudly. Now, it's such a great color for you guys, you know. Where did he go? DJ is not here any longer. Greg? We'd love to have you. And Charlie. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I need a new tie.
You need a new tie. Wear it proudly. It's such a great color. And now we'd like to open it up to questions, if the press has any questions that they'd like to ask for any of the people who've spoken.
Do you see any constitutional barrier to this education tax credit, since it's going to provide a public benefit for religious education?
Maybe Alan can come up here too.
Thanks.
There's actually been a Supreme Court case, federal Supreme Court case in ruling on the Arizona tax credits, and they said because essentially since the money wasn't collected, that it was still private money, that's private money, and so it doesn't face that restrictions. Aside from that, Chuck Douglas a number of years ago did a court opinion that he saw vouchers as being constitutional under the Blaine Amendment. However, tax credits, because the Arizona ruling is even on much more sound footing than that. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Alan.
There was just actually recently another case, I think it was in Iowa, that reinforced it again within the state. In this case, a voucher was going to the religious establishment. Okay. And we all have different views of how it ought to be, but now we have a crystal clarity about how it is constitutionally, legally in the United States at this time.
Kevin, Chuck did his study for us about whether or not vouchers are constitutional, and while there's some question about whether or not a voucher program would actually be constitutional, we think it is, but not everybody agrees. There's really no question about an education tax credit program, and it's because of the structure of that it isn't. In fact, it's one of the reasons a lot of people use tax credit programs instead of vouchers is because of the constitutional permissiveness.
Okay. I think that was the breakthrough between the study bill, SB 67, and the present bill, was recognizing that there were constitutional issues with the voucher that the tax credit was entirely free of. And it allowed us to proceed very fluently without entangling ourselves with past legislation.
And while I'm up here, Freedom Works was kind enough to send us a bunch of T-shirts. They're over in the box, so if anybody wants one of these, grab those. Some magnetic bumper stickers for school choice, and then we have some flyers for school choice relative to New Hampshire. We have a lot of these. So.
And I just wonder whether Ovid referred to this as a baby step. I mean, as $2,500 isn't going to support the average tuition in a religious secondary school of $7,600, or the average cost at a secular secondary school of $25,000. How many poor families are going to really be helped by this and be able to afford that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Keep in mind that as a state program, we're looking at the adequacy aid, and that's what we kind of tapped into, and so that does limit the size of the program.
Yes.
However, it should be pointed out that $2,500 is an average scholarship. So what other states have seen is families that are more needy may get a larger scholarship. Families, that are closer to the middle class and able to foot a lot of the bill themselves would get a smaller one. It is on the average. Also, private donations can be added to these scholarship programs without any restriction, and that can increase the amounts. And we're hoping we'll see that as these gets formed up, they'll generate some private capital as well.
It's also important to note that the average tuition is not a price tag in a traditional sense. And if you think about college this way, right? Nobody actually pays sticker price to go to college. Right. There are a few people who do, but almost nobody does. And the same is very much true of tuition. That almost every non-public school in the state has a graduated scale on tuition. And so we think this really will help a lot of people, because most private schools, and there are some exceptions probably. I don't know the extent to which boarding schools are as interested in things like this, but most private schools are making significant efforts to try to attract people of a broad socioeconomic spectrum. So I think this will make an enormous difference, actually.
Okay. And I do want to point out one thing. The statistic you said of secular schools being 22,000. We talked about that in the SB 67 committee this summer, and those numbers are kind of skewed because they have St. Paul's and Exeter in there. Right. If you look at kind of the median school, and most, a lot of students in those schools are from out of state. Plus, they have significant financial aid, so nobody pays that anyway. So, the tuitions are much lower than 22,000. On average, private schools are less expensive than the public schools.
All right. Thanks.
Yes, my name is June Frazier. I'm also on the Education Committee, and I had the same question. And if I may, I'd like to follow up on that a little bit. My husband and I are thinking about this bill. Went to the websites of it, or actually called many of the private schools in the state. And I hope that we'll get those numbers we found out written up so people can look at them. But we found that the private schools of many types, from less to more prestigious, had bills. The cost was much, much more than the $2,500 average that you're talking about. So it appears to me that only the wealthy are going to be able to afford that difference, and the things you're talking about, sliding scale and tuition and so on, will not make up the difference. However, what will happen is in my opinion, is that it will leave the public schools, the money will diminish the public schools, because even though they have fewer students to teach, they will still be paying for the buildings if they're not paid for the maintenance, the utilities, etc. And the money they don't get for these students and have to pay on these bills will diminish the education for the students who are left behind in the public schools.
What you say would be true if no student who ever went to a private school ever got a grant and aid or ever received a scholarship, whoever received a discount on tuition. But that's just not the case. The way the real world works is that people don't pay sticker price at schools, and schools routinely, regularly give people a discount on tuition. There is no, if you talk to private school administrators around the state, around the country, there is no private school administrator who charges every student at his school the exact same dollar amount. It's just not the way the world works. And what we're trying to do is to pick an amount that will impact that will have an effect on the number of kids who are able to take advantage of this. And what other states have found, and it's one of the things we looked at, is if you're getting an amount that is significantly less than the sticker tuition, which again nobody pays, at schools, will it make a difference? Will students be able to attend? And what we found is that in states around the country that have education tax credit programs, it makes a huge difference, and poor people from around those states are able to attend. And there's no earthly reason to think that New Hampshire would ever be any different from that. There's not something weird about New Hampshire that makes it different from Pennsylvania and Iowa and Arkansas or Arizona and every other state in the country. So,
and I think it was from your study from a few years ago, is currently 17% of existing private school students are at the 200% poverty level or below. That's less than that are in public school, which is I think a little over 20%. So it is harder for the poor to go to private schools, but people still do it because they care about their kids, and they either get a scholarship, get tuition aid, or they pay out of pocket at a great sacrifice to themselves. So it does happen. The other thing I'll point out is the Senate bill has means testing added in there. That's going to be a debate that happens between the House and the Senate, I believe. So we did add means testing as a criteria in there. However, looking at other states that don't have means testing, about 75%, there's one state, 75% of their scholarships, even without means testing, go to families that are at the 200% poverty level or below. I think that statistics is correct. So the bottom line, I mean, we don't tell Salvation Army to give money to poor people, but that's what they do because that's what they believe in, and that's what happens with these scholarship programs. And then the other thing is, in terms of impact on the local public schools, the size of the program is $15 million. We spend, as a state, both at the state level and local, about $3 billion per year. So this is really a drop in the bucket in terms of education funding for the public schools. It's a 0.5% if the program were fully utilized, and if you assume no cost reductions in the schools. But there's been a number of studies. Charlie's group did one showing the variable cost was like $5,000 to $6,000. There's been a number of federal studies that show the variable cost of about 80% of tuition. The cost of the school buildings is very small compared to the cost of teachers. And so if some of the classroom sizes are reduced and you consolidate classrooms, you can have a big savings. That doesn't happen in every case, of course. If you just take one student out, you might not consolidate a classroom. But on average, it does work out to be a larger savings than the state is paying in adequacy.
Would these scholarships be able to be used at other public schools rather than just the one?
Yeah, that was something we got feedback from. In my particular example, from the Guilford School District, I met with their superintendent, and they commonly have students from other districts because they have a good reputation sending their kids to Guilford Public School. If the sending district approves it, the state adequacy aid can follow that child to that public school. But in a lot of cases, the sending district doesn't approve it, in which case the parent gets no money and pays completely out of pocket. And so we have added to an amendment that will be presented the ability to get a scholarship in those cases for a public school out of district, as long as the adequacy aid is not falling in.
There's a wide variation in the quality of private schools, but I don't see any accountability, academic accountability in the bill. What about that?
Well, the best, to be honest, the private schools has the best accountability possible, which is if you're not happy, you pull your kids out of that school. So that's.
So there'd be no public testing, publicly available test results, so that taxpayers and consumers could
well, remember the taxpayers
compare.
The taxpayer's not paying the bill in this case. It's
The $15 million isn't coming out of the state budget?
It's reduced revenues, but we're not, state money is not coming out. I mean, that was the whole point of the Arizona Supreme Court case. But
as a technical matter, private money is going to the schools, but it's funded with public money.
it's not funded with public money.
The tax credit is the public money.
We have reduced the revenue, but at the same time, we've also reduced the state's obligation. But it's not public money at that point.
The point about the accountability question, though, is there some sort of accountability? And the answer is that there is, and the importance of accountability is that you're able to withdraw your kids from the school. And one of the reasons that we impose testing requirements on public schools is because for a lot of kids today, that is your only option. That is the one option, and you're not really allowed to take your kids. You have one choice in the public school system. Assigned to you based on your zip code. And in this particular case, the whole point of this is to allow you to withdraw them. There is a significant urge on the part of, I think, the bill sponsors and in any bill to not impose additional requirements on schools beyond the requirements imposed upon them already, and in order to accept a scholarship student. And I think that's also very important, as long as there's some sort of maintenance of the ability to immediately withdraw your kids.
I'd like to address that from the standpoint of as a 501c3, we all receive a tax benefit which comes directly out of the revenues of the state, and the state recognizes that they cannot do everything for us, that some things we need to do for ourselves, and they favor people who are engaged in that activity with that reduction of the collected taxes. And the accountability we have is fiscal accountability, and we need to work within the law. The schools that will be participating also have accountability. They are private schools operating in the state of New Hampshire, and the state of New Hampshire has a definition for that, and they must uphold that definition or they won't be excluded from this. So there are accountabilities, and the structure of the tax credit is designed to do something for us. It's designed to allow us to do something for ourselves that the state either cannot or should not do for us. It's well established, and this isn't new, and the money isn't public because it is not collected.